Welcome to the Judgment-Free Zone. You've downloaded the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast with Matt and Amy, recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois. Welcome to episode number 75 for January 29th, 2024.
Well, hello there, children. Welcome back to the Judgment-Free Zone. That is the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. We are your weekly freak show here on the cornfields. I'm Matt, along with the always lovely and dancing it up over there, Coach Amy. How are you, my love?
I'm pretty good, but I think we need to do some outtakes.
Amy starts talking when the music starts, I tell her to do the intro. I said, all right, when the music starts, start dancing, just as a haha. And she literally started dancing and not talking, so that took a second take.
We like to have a little bit of fun here, right? Just
a
little fun. I like to have fun. You take things way too seriously.
You know what, Amy? I'm just in a bad mood because of KitchenAid, okay? Good thing we don't need to blend margaritas.
Guys.
Good thing we don't need blending too much because
we did blend for my drink of the week.
Oh, we did.
We did blend. And that's, I think, when I started to notice this issue.
I'm not big into conspiracy theories, but I'm pretty sure there is a conspiracy with the appliance companies because our dishwasher...
I'm full on in it.
Dishwasher rack started to rust after a few years. Those are like $500 a set.
Yes.
A whole dishwasher can cost you $500.
Yes.
Blender.
So we ended up with a new dishwasher.
Our blender, which is a nice blender, you think, oh, it's going to last. And the motor and components do last. But the jar has developed a weak link, and it's leaking, and you need to replace the blade.
We know why.
I know, I'm not gonna that. But the blade needs replaced. You can't buy a blade. Fine, I'll buy a whole jar. A jar is over like $140 to $200 for the jar.
Yeah, it's like half the price of a new,
more than
like
half.
A whole set.
Yeah,
like the whole new.
We can downsize the jar a little bit, buy a whole new blender for $40-$50. That's just ridiculous. That is the worst.
We've got a plan.
Yeah. I would never call myself an environmentalist, but that is total waste.
It is. It's complete waste.
Just so they can sell another unit.
Yep.
Yep.
And so what are we doing? We have to buy because we're going to buy a new unit just to get the jar.
Right. Because it's cheaper than buying just a jar.
And that jar will fit on this, but I think we're going to upgrade a little bit because then we'll have two bases and Maggie is going off to college.
No, she's going to have her apartment.
Oh, she's going to have an apartment. Sorry. She's already at college. Sorry. But we're just going to go ahead and be like, oh, well, you can use this if she wants to. I think she will because...
There you go.
Kids. She's pretty frugal. So there you go.
You didn't come here for appliance talk.
That happen
in marriages.
In our everyday life.
There you go.
In Central Illinois, in the cornfields.
There you go.
And I have hair in my mouth.
Deal with the hair. In the meantime, while the people don't want to hear about hair or appliances, you can always go to jointheirSide.com and get our Beyond Spirits, our 7 tips for starting your AF journey. That's a free download from Coach Amy. And of course, you can always like and subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate that. And
yes, let's do this first.
If you email Coach Amy at joyontheotherside.com, you could possibly win this week only the book that we're going to talk about with the author here in a minute,
which is
Mixology.
The Mocktail Club.
Yes.
And it is classic recipes and new favorites without the booze. And
they are amazing.
Yes, we've made 4 now. Yeah. And they're really good. Derek, we're going to be interviewing him. And
in 2 minutes, you're going to hear that?
I'm going to be... Yes.
Or 1 minute or 30 seconds if you fast forward to this randomness. So, Amy, let's talk about our drink.
Why would you want to?
Why would you want to? So, our drink of the week, which you'll see in the video and talked about here in a minute. Amy, you had what?
The Jack Frost.
Which is a fun blue drink.
It's a blue drink, but...
Which used NA tequila, right? I think so.
Yes. Yes, it did. And, but when you see it, it is really pretty. But the thing is, guys, with it is the fact is it's blue. And what flavor do I associate blue
Gen
with?
Xers at least. Raspberry.
Raspberry.
Proven by the sucker I got at the bank today. Yes. It was blue, and I said, Amy, what flavor do you think is? Raspberry, and it was.
It was blue raspberry. And then you had...
And the blue for your drink is actually orange. But
it's an orange flavor.
I had the Whiskey Sidecar, which is... And NA whiskey and some other stuff.
Maybe we can show the pictures.
We will. I'll show the picture. If you're watching on the YouTubes, you'll see the pictures and you'll be able to see the video. But The book is a great book.
It is a coffee table book, as I
amazing.
say in the interview, but it is so pretty.
There's 75 recipes in it.
You know how sometimes you order a book online, like on Amazon and then you get it and you're kind of like, is this really a book? You're like,
More of a
really?
leaflet.
Yeah, you feel like it's a leaflet or something. No, this is a legitimate book. I mean, what is
and
there
there's 75 recipes, and there's even a section towards the end of just mocktails with our spirit, and it was spiritless, I guess. So NA spirit.
Yeah, there's
just
nothing. It's just
like I did the coffee and tonic, which is really good.
That was very
or
good.
Espresso tonic, I guess. But,
yes, very good.
So if you don't even want to buy any of those because those can be expensive, there's recipes for that too. So
absolutely,
a great little guide if you want to dip in if you're tired of your everyday something. So
I will jump now into the intro.
Oh, please use another subtle segue, Amy. Please, why don't you tell us about Derek, Amy?
All right. Well, we are interviewing Derek Santiago, and he is a mixologist based in Southern California. He is the author of the new recipe book, the Mocktail Club. He is also the creator of the Mocktail Wiz on Instagram, and he also has a website that's dedicated to craft mocktails, non-alcoholic recipes as well, and mindful mixology techniques. So we're going to just go to that interview with Derek right now, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, we are here now with Derek Santiago, and he is the author. I always have to now go around and go, the Mocktail Club. And you're also the Mocktail Wiz, and that's how I got familiar with you. And so welcome so much, and thank you for being on the show. And we just usually like to get this started by asking, where you're from, what you like to do, maybe for fun, and then jump in. And if you would like to share your story with us and our listeners, we'd love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Derek, aka Mocktail Wiz on Instagram, like you mentioned. I am originally from the Philippines. I was born and raised there, and I moved here for work in 2013 in San Diego. And it was initially just 1 year because I didn't know, I just wasn't sure if I was going to be able to handle being away from family for that long. But it was so convenient living here, no 2-hour commute. So I decided, you know what, this is the better financial decision is to stay here. So I've stayed here since then.
Awesome. That is so great. And so tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so alcohol wasn't a big part of my life when I was in the Philippines. I've seen my uncles drink, and my dad, he worked in Saudi Arabia my whole life. So he would just go home every 2 years if we're lucky, and he would stay there for a month. And that's when I would see drinking in the household. But other than that, my mom didn't drink, and so alcohol was just not a big part of my life. And then I was sent to the US for work by the same company that I worked for in the Philippines. And suddenly I found myself in the middle of happy hours, which are very different here because in the Philippines, we do karaoke, and a lot of the people kind of focus on the karaoke. Some would drink, but I guess at that time I didn't see it because I wasn't seeking it. But then here, I remember my very first happy hour. It was this in this nice area in Encinitas in San Diego, and I was asked what I wanted to drink, and in a panic I said champagne, and everybody laughed because they were like, "What? Are we at a wedding?" But I didn't know what to order because I just wasn't exposed to it, and frankly, I didn't like drinking in the Philippines because it's mainly beer and it's the bitter kind, and I didn't like bitter drinks before. And so sadly I had to train for happy hours because I didn't want to be embarrassed anymore. And so that's when I did my exploration with the different beverages. I didn't like the taste of wine, but I feel like that was a fancy choice. So I tried to look for wines that I could tolerate. I remember being so naive, and I bought a brand called Cupcake thinking it would taste like cupcakes, but nope, it was just the name. And so that's also when I discovered that I can shut my brain off with alcohol. Being away from my family and having stressful projects here abroad was was hard, and I found myself just at night couldn't sleep because I was worrying about the next day and the work. And so I discovered that if I drink a couple glasses of wine, I go straight to sleep. And so that's, I think, when I started to see it as a tool. And this was in 2013, like within a year of moving here in the US. But I would say that I wasn't really a big drinker, even though I was training to be one. Um, and so I did moderation because I got into fitness and did some personal training, and I didn't want to cancel out the effort by drinking alcohol. And so I would say I was successful in moderating until I lost my mother in 2020.
Sorry.
And that was really a big blow to me and my family. She was the center of our lives at the time, still now. But so that's when the moderation became hard. And I just couldn't stick to my limits anymore. And you know what happens? It's the spiral, the shame, and the guilt, and wanting to do better again next day. And then 5 o'clock hits, and oh, I was overreacting. Let's drink again. So
Yeah.
that happened for a couple more years until 2022. My mother's death anniversary is June 4th, and the days leading up to that day every year, I would say, is harder than the day itself. And that's when I would, maybe like 2 months before, I would already drink a lot of alcohol because I'm trying to escape, right? I don't want to face that day. And until June 4th of 2022, that was a Saturday. And then June 5th, we had like a small town chili cook-off thing here in my neighborhood. And I was drinking out on the streets because it's allowed. And that was the last day that I had a drink. June 6th, I knew I needed to change something. And that's when I picked up This Naked Mind, which, interestingly, I was recommending it to a friend just last week, and it looks like I bought the book in January of that year, but I didn't really pick it up, and I listened to the Audible version until June of that same year. And so
Wow.
that's what started the journey. And I didn't know that the June 5th was the last day that I will be drinking. And now I have a year and I think 7 months alcohol free.
That's so awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations too on that. That is, you're going against the grain.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really hard too, because the world I know every profession is like that, but I'm in the IT consulting industry. And so happy hours are all centered around drinking. I would rather have it centered around karaoke, but it's not in the Philippines. So,
Yeah.
And
So go
well,
ahead.
Derek, you mentioned before we start recording that your partner no longer drinks too.
mhm.
How long has he not drank, and were you like drinking buddies prior to you quitting too?
No, he has over 11 years of
Oh
sobriety.
wow.
So when we started dating, he already was sober. I remember he mentioned it to me, the group that he's a part of, and I had no idea because I am a foreigner. I'm like, what's that? So he explained to me, and I remember asking him, with that 12-step program, can I moderate? Because I knew, even then, I knew that I had to change my relationship with alcohol. But he's like,
Yeah.
no, no, we don't do moderation here. Um, so yeah, the whole time that we were together, he wasn't drinking. And then, so he's very gracious in that he knew me before my mom passed away, and then he saw me when my mom passed away. And that shift in just perspective in life, and just the shift in relationship with alcohol. And all throughout, he didn't say anything. He was never judgy. And so I really appreciate him for that. But now that I also am not drinking, we have a lot of discussions around sobriety, which I appreciate so much because we have different perspectives. I'm coming from the this naked mind type approach, science based. I no longer want to drink because why? And then he's coming from the recovery standpoint. And yeah, I just love our conversations now that I also am not drinking.
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
I mean, I would say what 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 brought you to that point? You know, what made you on June 5th, or I guess
Hmm.
maybe even the 6th, that
Yeah, the
okay,
sixth.
I'm I think I gotta look at this, like look at this seriously.
Hmm. I knew that I think I drank the most during that period. And I knew to the point that I wasn't getting any hangovers anymore. Like I don't have headaches. I
Mm,
just feel floaty the next day, but no headaches. And so I just knew that something needed to change. And like I said, I was trying to do moderation after my mom passed away, but it wasn't working anymore. And so I just listened to the This Naked Mind book and something clicked. But what drew me to that point was I didn't like how I was showing up to the world anymore. Um, I show up to work and I do a good job, but I feel like I wasn't at my best, and that they deserve better. Uh, because I don't have the clarity. I didn't have the clarity that I have now, which I'm very grateful for. And also for my partner, I feel like I wasn't being the best partner to him because, you know, come dinner time, I kind of slip away because, and back then I really love watching Netflix because I could just sit and drink. And now I'm like, I don't want to watch TV. Let's go do something else. Yeah.
Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And we totally relate with that. I mean, it was like,
Like, oh, what do we
okay,
do now? Let's
what
do
are we
something.
doing? Let's
Yeah.
have a drink
Yeah.
and sit and
Hmm.
veg out because we deserve it. And
Yeah.
but I love that, you know, you're in California. It's beautiful. The weather typically is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So you have this whole playground,
Yeah.
and you were closed off from that, and now it's all opened up. It's like, okay, let's go do something different. And
Yeah. Hmm.
the curiosity and just sense of awe, and I want to be out in the world again.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I want to talk to you about that. You used to make mocktails too. I mean, you
Hmm.
used to make cocktails.
Correct.
So, and I read in the book, either in the book or on your website, where you said you just kind of thought that that was going to go away.
Yes, yes. I did. So it's funny. I had a short stint in London for a project, and a birthday gift that a client gave me was a mixology class, and immediately I got worried. I was thinking, is my drinking that obvious that their birthday gift for me is a mixology class? I found out that my friend tipped them that I'm interested in the mixology, so I'm like, okay, good. But that's what started the interest in mixology was in London doing real. Oops, that's my sorry my mocktail here. Um, that's what started the mixology. And when I gave up alcohol, I thought that that was going to be gone. And frankly, this is a little petty, but the one splurge that I had when we first moved into this house that we got was this beautiful bar cabinet from Crate and Barrel. It's beautiful. It was my one splurge, and it's funny how I decided I'm not going to drink anymore, and I got sad. What am I going to use this bar cabinet for? Um, and now it's
Yeah.
overflowing with single glasses and also alcohol-free spirits.
Which is
Yeah.
funny because we when we quit, we kind of got rid of some. We didn't have a bar, but we had like some of the bar tools and that type of the
Yeah.
glass. Like
Oh yeah.
we don't drink we didn't drink
We
martinis before. Why we need
we're
martinis?
not going to need it now.
Yeah.
But now we start mixing. Same thing. Like we have way
Yeah.
more bottles than we ever had. We now we're like, oh crap, we got rid of those glasses. Like we had the
Yep.
glasses are in front of us right now. Like this glass we had to buy because we had nothing even like it. It's like,
Yeah.
how are we possibly using all this more now than we would when we were drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's become more fun. And then going back to your point about my relationship with my partner, when I was doing my real mixology with real alcohol, he couldn't participate, but now he's my permanent guinea pig with all the recipes. And so now, even in the book recipe development, I would always have him and my sister try all the drinks. And one thing about my partner is if he spits it out, that means it's too close to alcohol. And so when he spits things out, it's a win for me. Oh, I mimicked it. Yeah.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
twist. How many recipes are in the book?
75 recipes.
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
are they all original, or are some of them
There,
modified versions that you found, or
yeah.
how did you come to all 75 of these?
So a lot of them are original, but there's also a number of them that was inspired by alcoholic cocktails, and that's part of the creativity, because we're at a quote unquote disadvantage in terms of flavor, right? You can't replicate alcohol's burn and flavor and texture, so that's where the creativity comes in. Like, oh, where do I get heat in replacement of alcohol? And so I leaned into that when I started the Mocktail Wiz, because I'm like, I can make this work. Just needs a little bit of creativity.
Yeah. And you've done a great job.
Thank you.
First off, following you, this is good for you because you do get mesmerized by your videos. It's like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
thank
it's so
you.
pretty. And then you're like, oh, okay, what's he gonna do? And I know you have you've switched it up because
Yeah.
sometimes you're in a lot of them, or I think you
Uh-huh.
used to be in a lot more of them.
Yep.
Like we would see you.
Hmm.
And then you've just done some switching around. So it's been really fun to watch you
Thank you.
evolve. Everything is always so pretty.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah, and it's so fun that it's actually really good too, because like I'm having the Highland Mule
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
and you're having what?
Whiskey Sidecar.
Yeah, and
Sidecar.
I made the Jack Frost on Friday. I
How'd you
had
like
to
it?
make that. It was really
It's
good.
really
I
Okay,
love it
good.
because I'm sitting, but in America, and maybe this is the way it is in the Philippines too, blue is always supposed to be raspberry. Like growing up,
Ah,
blue
blue
like
raspberry.
when you see blue like in a drink, you're like, oh, you're always thinking it's going to be a raspberry drink, and this
mm,
was no raspberry at
no,
all.
it's
I'm like, it was
it,
really good,
yeah, that was more
fun.
citrus. Yeah. Yeah, Jack
Yeah,
Frost. Yeah,
yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that because Jack Frost almost didn't make the cut. I couldn't make it work because I was using something else, and I switched up the spirit alternative and it worked. And so that's why it made it there. So I'm
yeah,
glad you liked it. It almost
yeah.
didn't make it.
The one I
But
picked.
The one thing.
but but what the version that made it I liked so much because it just wasn't working with the previous version of it. And then I'm like, this is not good. I'm like, one last attempt, and then I switched something up. I'm like, oh, and it looks beautiful too. So it made
Yeah,
it.
it's just so pretty,
I,
and
I'm curious of any tips you have because, well, I this does not call for ice, but I put ice in it 'cause I like ice in my drinks, and I'm the
Mhm.
mixologist in my house, so I'm making my drink, right?
Yeah.
But one of my holdbacks sometimes from make these is um like all the accoutrement, like, oh, and you put a
oh
swizzle of this and a swizzle, and he's like, you don't have any fruit. I'm like, I have time, I just want to make it.
Yeah.
I mean, whether alcohol or not, it's like I don't have time for all that.
Yeah.
I, I'm just curious, is a person losing, like, at what point are you really impacting the flavor of the drink versus the the beauty of the drink, right? Like,
Mm,
is some of that extra on there more for show, or is it actually bring some, because you could smell like the citrus if there's a rind on there,
yeah.
right? So is that really part of it, or is it all partially pretty, partially sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the mocktails that I made for the book, the garnish are some of them are more for presentation and also to round up the senses with the scent, especially if there's herbs in it. But most of the time, I didn't use garnishes that you would need to, like a lime wedge that you would need to squeeze into the drink, because that might throw the balance off. So for me,
mm,
most of my garnishes either are just for visual appeal or for the sense of smell. I sometimes even slap the mint around it and in the glass itself so that you can get that aroma. And some of
Sure.
them are just additional treats, like for instance, the cherry in that maple old fashioned. It's almost like, oh, this is my fun treat at the end of the drink. But like you said, I made it a point in the book to make it easy because I know that some of the spirit alternatives are expensive. So if you have just one spirit alternative, you can have at least a dozen that you can do. And the rest of the ingredients you can find in grocery stores. I really made it a point to not mix and match different spirit alternatives so that it's as easy as possible.
Oh, that's a great point. Because there are some that's like, oh, you need a bottle of this and a bottle. I'm like, well, that's $90 worth of spirits just to make a one drink. And if you don't like it, what are you going to do with all of this?
Yeah.
And you're right. This just uses the whiskey. That's whiskey. The other one just I think uses gin or something.
Yeah. Well, no, when we were doing this though, that was my point. I'm like, oh, you're gonna have
just pour some over here, and we only have the one bottle.
I'll just have the same thing. I'll just make a drink over here. I know I have lime, and I know I have ginger beer. So
yeah.
Because like Liar's website, you're familiar with Liar's.
Yeah.
They have a lot of good cocktails and mixes, but it's all using their product. And some of them are 2 or 3. And I'm like, I'm not buying all of that to make that drink because I don't know what I'm going to do with it for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Eventually it will go bad. So,
Yep, exactly. And that's why I chose that approach. I feel like I could make even more complex drinks with combining different spirits, but it's like you mentioned, some of these are expensive. And so that's why I also made it a point that there is a section where you don't need any of the alcohol-free spirits because depending on where you are, some of these things are not available. I have friends in Bali who are so into mocktails, but we're like, we don't have those alternatives here, so.
So I didn't even look. There is a section here that doesn't even use.
Alternative. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's got it all.
I liked and I made it. So
he has it all. And then you've used some different wines. I know you have a mulled wine.
Yeah.
That is in there. I think I know on your website it had Gießen. I didn't look it up in there, but I'm like, oh, I love Gießen. So I'm thinking about making that.
And we already had all the bitters. We have all the whole set. So we use that in the drinks because that was so it was a little easier for us because we've amassed a bunch of different ones over the years,
Yeah.
But, we love all the bitter. So
and have you worked with Amethyst? Have you worked with Amethyst?
Yeah. I haven't worked with him, but I met Jane at a Suns Bar event.
Jane,
and they recently sent me a trio, and I've only tried the grapefruit basil, and that was really good. I actually added a recipe recently using the grapefruit basil. It's interesting because it's a little sweeter, but there's a heat afterwards that I didn't know where it was coming from. But when mixed in the mocktail, it kind of replaces that burn from alcohol. I'm like, oh, I can work with this. So I'm excited to try the other two.
Yeah,
blueberry ginger is good, but we'll have to look up that one because we just recently acquired the grapefruit one.
Yeah, we just got that, and
you're right. The basil in that one, unlike the other ones, it was we just threw it with I forget ginger beer or something. I'm like, something's weird in this. I'm like, oh, it's the basil. I'm like, okay, you have to. It suddenly dawned on me you have to be very intentional of how you use it because the basil can really drive it in a weird direction if you mix something that doesn't kind of complement it. And not being mixologists, we don't know. We just pour stuff together and hope it works.
Yeah, I mixed mine with lavender because I know lavender goes well with grapefruit. And also, it's kind of botanical, so it goes well with basil too. And then I just added some citrus to balance it out and then dial in the grapefruit flavors with grapefruit soda. So I kind of did like a French 75 type of mocktail with grapefruit soda instead of a wine spritzer.
Oh, cool.
So you end up with 75 winners in the book. How many losers did you not have?
Countless.
Or how many they didn't make the book?
I can't remember, but I have a full notebook of, and I'm a physical writer too. It just sticks with me if I read pen and paper. So I have a full notebook of things that didn't make the cut, like with no names at all, because I'm like, why it didn't make the cut? So I'm not gonna. Coming up with the name is the hardest part for me writing the book. Um, and
Did you
also,
how did you name him? Did you source it from friends or have little brainstorming parties or how did you do that?
yeah, with my own little family here, I would ask them, but I always end up naming because they just give up on me. Like, I don't know, you do whatever you want. But no, they're so supportive. But when it comes to naming, it's always the hard part. So I would just try to do play on words. If there's a recipe with maybe like an ingredient that's part of a song, or like, based on the ingredients in the mocktail is how I usually, it's my go-to way of naming them.
Yeah, and so with the Highland Mule, I mean, are you going from like Scotland, the Highlands,
Yeah,
when
that's
you did that? Yeah, that's
that's
what
the
I figured.
inspiration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Scottish, so and my heritage, so I'm like
Oh,
I'm thinking that must be
yep,
where you
that's
got
it.
that.
Yeah.
So cool.
What were a couple of your favorites or the ones a couple that were like totally made the front of the book or whatever like there's like these are winners. What are the ones that get like the best type of response?
That's a great question. So, Fiery Squad, it's a tequila based mocktail. That's my favorite one of my favorites, I would say. It's like choosing between your children, but it's like that's one of my. It's definitely in the top five, just because Fiery Squad. It's kind of like a margarita type of it. It's inspired by a cocktail called Mexican Firing Squad, but this one, I wanted to add more heat to it, so I incorporated some ginger syrup, and then it uses all the bitter aromatic bitters. So
Hmm.
just that complexity from the bitters add to the overall taste. So to me, if I am asked, hey, you have to impress someone with a mocktail, which one would you choose? That's probably what I would choose. Although I've been sampling my mocktails in a lot of events this dry January, and I found that not everyone likes a mocktail that's strong in flavor. Some prefer a more floral, a more bubbly spritzer type. So I'm glad that I have those recipes too. But yeah, so for a strong drink, Fiery Squad is what I would recommend. And then just the second one I have to mention is the spicy pineapple margarita. It has a special place in my heart because that's what kicked off my mocktail journey. That was the very first mocktail that I made. That first weekend after I stopped drinking, I was cooking, and when I cook, I usually drink.
Hmm.
So without any spirit alternatives, I just muddled some jalapenos, added pineapple juice and some lime, and added a tahine rim, and I took a sip of it and I said, "Oh, this scratches the itch," because of the heat from the jalapeno. I'm like, oh, that
Hmm.
replaces the burn, and so
Hmm.
that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a whole there's a world of possibilities here, and so I added that into the book. But in the book, I added tequila alternative just to add complexity to it. But those two would be my favorite.
Oh, I love that. I love a spicy margarita. That is,
Hmm.
Well, and that's the thing I love about a book like this too. Of like, I'm not a mixologist. I would love to think I could be one day, but I don't know if my brain works that way. But if I find something I like one of these drinks, okay, use that as your foundation. It's like, oh, if you wanted
Yeah.
to be a little, oh well, I'm gonna try it this time with I don't know, ginger beer or some other
Hmm.
bitter or something, and that I know I like and see how that changes it. Which you can do it all day long 'cause there's no alcohol in it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're gonna
yeah,
fall off your chair one
yeah,
minute. You just oh let's
Exactly.
try it again.
yeah.
So that's the cool thing I love about a book like this is if I don't know what I want, I just make what's in the book. And if I feel
Hmm.
adventurous, find something in the book
Yeah.
and experiment from there. So you can kind
Hmm.
of choose your own adventure almost.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And so because you went on this journey, I'm just curious because I kept the ritual and replaced
Hmm.
the ingredients. I mean, that
Hmm.
was for probably 4 or 5 months. I
Yeah.
came home every single day and I had my ritual of muddling up fruit. I got some, I guess it's what they call a shrub.
Oh yeah.
And then I got bubbly water and
Yep.
I would make my own little concoctions.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I mean, literally had it every day. And They were good, and they were good for me. I
Hmm.
mean,
And
like,
they scratch that itch.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
There.
that
Yeah.
that itch. And when you said that heat,
Yeah.
that is definitely what people. I don't know. I know for me, that's what I wanted. I wanted to have that little bit of a
Yeah.
burn.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's me too. And that's actually part of the reason why I started Mocktail Wiz was because I've I've had some spirit alternatives that I spent money on, and then because you don't get to sample them if you buy them from
mhm.
regular liquor stores. I know some non-alcoholic bottle shops like Boisson, for example. We have a couple in LA. They can have you sample before you commit to a full bottle. So that's awesome. But for people who are far from bottle shops like that, you kind of just trust the reviews and buy it, hoping for the best. And I've had a couple of those, not going to name the brands, but that are just, oh, this just disappears when you mix into the mocktail. And so that's why I also made the account so that people would know what I use, and I only post things that I actually really like. Um,
Yeah.
I've been sent things before that are like, they have other products maybe that are maybe better than this. But I
Right.
don't say it like that. But if I post it, that means I truly enjoyed using the product, because I know that this can be investments for some
Yeah.
people.
Well, and
Well,
you're right. The regional, even if you're not in a bottle shop where you can sample, like I really want to get my hands on a bottle of the Tanqueray Zero, but the only
Oh
place that I know I
yeah.
can get it near me is at Generation NA in Lafayette, Indiana, which is 2 hours from here.
Oh wow.
And he has to get it from Canada. So,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna have to make an investment in time, but I think
Yeah.
it's good. Here's what I use, but if you can only find, a different brand, at least you can
Yeah.
know what to use. But
Yeah.
there's
Hmm.
definitely not a consist. The spirits, everybody always asks me like, well, how do you? I'm like, beers are very easy to replicate.
Yeah.
Wine is close. Spirits, because you don't have the alcohol to get the burn, it's almost impossible to
It's hard. It's
really
really
you
hard.
really you
mhm.
almost have to make it into a mocktail to really
Hmm.
to get there.
Yeah.
Straight up, it's just never gonna, I don't think, do it.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask. I know you said you didn't like beer because you didn't like the bitter beer. Do
Oh, that
you?
was
Yeah, I think like in the Philippines,
in
but
the
now
Philippines. Yeah.
here, do you do you make any mocktails or drinks with any beer?
Yeah. So that comment was from my past when I wasn't drinking a
Okay,
lot.
when you were a
And
kid.
then
Okay.
And then I went to London, and suddenly I liked beer because I got immersed in the pub culture. And so I came
Okay.
back home to the US loving IPAs. And so um,
Okay.
it's interesting that you brought that up, because when I was reading This Naked Mind that first few days, I drank a lot of hazy IPAs from Athletic Brewing, because it's just so close to the real thing, if not the same
Hmm.
flavor. And so that's what got me through the weekdays. And then I got to the Saturday, and I'm like, I need something else now. So that's when the spicy pineapple
Mm.
margarita came into picture. But to answer your question, I've made some shandies before, with other not spirit alternatives. They're more their own thing. Like, I don't know if you've heard of drama. Um, so they have like it's their own elixir. It's not copying any alcohol, but it has ginger flavors. The calm has ginger flavors, and then there's awake, and that has pomegranate. And I've mixed the pomegranate one with um the passion fruit sour from Busty Lush. And so I've made some
Okay.
shandy type of drink before. But my suggestion is, if you have like a wheat beer or any citrusy type of beer. All the bitter orange bitters go really
Yeah.
well
Oh
in
yeah,
some
Yeah.
of these
yeah,
beers.
yeah. That was one of Ian's first tips when we talked to him when we first got all the bitter. I go, well, what do you put in it? He goes, anything. He goes even best in like a cheap, like a Budweiser Zero.
Mm,
Put some of that. And I'm like, holy crap, you're so right on.
yeah,
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 yeah.
Yeah. And then also like
And wines.
yeah, doing the aromatic
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
in
wines.
the red wine
yeah,
really helps
Because
too.
it's just missing just a little bit and it just brings a little bit of body back
yeah,
into it. And
yeah,
it's amazing what it can do. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I think that I don't know. What's next for you? So I mean, you've started this. This just came out January 7th.
Second.
Second. Okay.
Yeah. So I do have some exciting projects in the works. I don't know if I have approval to announce them yet. But uh, in my Mocktail Wiz account, I am working with. I have a lot of projects coming up with some of the brands that I truly like. So I have that happening, and then just New Year's Eve last year, my sister and I actually bartended at a nonprofit event that supports people in recovery, and we did like a fully alcohol-free bar, and we were the bartenders,
Oh
and
wow.
that filled my cup so much because seeing those people come into the New Year's Eve party and then not expecting that there will be a bar, and then seeing that there's a bar and it's fully alcohol-free. I did even use spirit alternatives because I didn't want to mimic the taste of alcohol. So
Mm-hmm.
we did tea-based mocktails for that event. And so I think that's something that we will do more this year, just because it's a good feeling to be able to provide that kind of option to people when they're because we all, like, at least from my end, I feel left out still sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
in social situations everybody's drinking and then I don't have anything. So yeah, that's something that we are looking to do more this year.
That is awesome.
Oh, that is great. I think that is I'm going to off when we get off here. I might try to connect with somebody for an event too, south of you, but in
Oh,
California.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, I normally ask what you drink when you're not drinking, but you have an entire book here of what you drink when you're not drinking, so I don't know if that.
Well, I
But
can
I
tell
guess
you,
I'll ask, what's your favorite spirit? Your favorite, like if you were to pick a spirit, what's one of your favorites?
I would recommend tequila alternative. I think from the category, uh, there are brands that are getting really good at their tequila alternatives, and just you can be so creative with different flavor margaritas, just with the tequila alternative. So when people ask me where to start, I usually recommend tequila alternatives to start with, because you can just play with the syrup instead of maybe orange simple syrup, or make it a strawberry simple syrup and you have a strawberry margarita. So the possibilities are endless. So
Yeah.
Right.
that's what I would recommend.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we just reviewed Trejo's
Oh, I
tequila.
haven't tried that one.
Yeah,
Is it good? You like it?
It was very it was definitely probably one of my favorites, or definitely on
Yeah, it is
par with
good.
the top ones that we've tried.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it comes in a really nice box. None of the other ones ever came in a
Yeah,
box.
it was
So
like a whole special
yeah,
event.
It's
yeah,
an
and they have a gin too.
experience.
But being a former gin guy, it's like that's the one thing is we always if you were into a hard alcohol when you were a drinker and you sit there and try and chase it, I don't know if you ever really find it. That's why I'm really curious about this Tanqueray Zero. I'm probably going to get my hopes up and be like, but
Yeah, I want
and
to
then I
try
don't miss
that
the
too.
alcohol. I just miss the taste, right? Like I don't want
Yeah.
the alcohol, but I just really that I can't really get that exact flavor. So maybe it'll be close enough. If I get a hold of a bottle, maybe I'll have you coach me on exactly how to execute
Yeah.
that.
I have yet to try that, and Tanqueray was my favorite when I was living there in London. And so, but I think the closest to me I heard, where I because I Googled this because I wanted to get Tanqueray
Mhm.
Zero too. But I heard that they have it at the duty free in San Francisco, but that will require me to fly there. So I don't know.
And then it's in duty free, so you got to fly out of the country. You got to fly to
Yeah,
like
and then
Canada or something,
yeah,
and then fly back.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's a long
Well,
haul.
well,
yeah.
Derek, thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your story. And we just love what you are doing. And again, I love a coffee table book.
She
Oh,
comes up to me. This is
I'm
a
like,
coffee table
this is a
book. I'm
coffee
like,
table
yeah.
book.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and maybe we can do something in the future
Yes,
together.
please.
I would love to partner with you on something. So,
Yes, please.
um, thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon.
Well, thank you, Derek, for being on the Alcohol
Yeah,
Free Marriage More podcast. Love him, love his
I know it.
style, his attitude.
He's just a delight.
And after we hung up,
I just want to hug him.
After we hung up, we got a super secret tip of something coming up. Very excited about that.
I know. We can't talk about that, but I think that if you order the book, I think you will really enjoy it, what he has coming up for you. And if you want to find more information about Derek, you can go to the mocktailwiz.com. And you can order his book, or it's on Amazon as well.
Yes.
So,
everywhere books are
and
sold.
if you want to win a copy of it, just go to amy@joyontheotherside.com. Send me an email.
Just say, hey, I want to win a book.
I want to win a book.
Whatever.
And we will do a drawing.
Yes.
For that.
So there you go. Good luck on winning the book. Thank you for tuning in once again. Thank you to Derek for being on the podcast. And kids, we will check you out next week with another fun-filled interview. Just wait and see. I am Matt along with Coach Amy, wishing you peace and love from the cornfields. And we are
out.